I do.
Hi, welcome to Ask the Manager. This should be an interesting show. We have, as everyone knows, Mo Boisvert with us today, with our town manager. We're so busy talking that right through the music, we had to still have a conversation, so it should be good. So I just want to start this show by acknowledging the passing of Nikki DiPilato. Nikki was an amazing town resident, and I'll tell you why. He's known, of course, because he was a history and social studies teacher, and he was head of the guidance department, and everyone knows that he was the winningest coach at Shrewsbury High School. And with that, there were 48 league championships, 36 district championships, and 7 state titles. Now, that is amazing. And we lived through it, so we took him for granted, I think. But he was MIAA Coaching Hall of Fame and Shrewsbury High School Athletic Hall of Fame. But he had an incredible relationship with the students and the students that he coached, the student athletes. But he spearheaded the establishment of our town cable system. And he guided the operation in the early years, which I forgot about. I mean, I've known Nikki since we were in grammar school, and he was involved with that beginning of cable in town, and so there was always something going on with him. And he was, like fundraising always for the Booster Club and the golf tournament for the fundraiser and that. But he was an incredible person, and will certainly be missed. And I just couldn't let that go by because he was such a contributor and was very gracious about it. So anyways, we do have our wonderful town meeting member here with us today, and Mo, you always count on him to move the question. I love it when he puts that hand up. I go, good, he's going to move the question. But he also contributes a lot with his wisdom through town meeting. And you're retired and very busy with your grandchildren. But you were president, you were president, CEO emeritus, or you are, of Ewing.
Ewing, right.
And you taught social work at BC.
Yep.
In your free time.
Right.
But you're always busy. You're always doing something and involved with different projects. And he ropes you in. You don't even know you're being roped in, but you're roped in.
Yeah.
And you're involved with the library. You're involved with the library.
I am.
So with that, I missed Mo at town meeting. He wasn't at town meeting this past time because I felt that the mood of town meeting was concerning to me. And it was concerning because I think we've forgotten how to respectfully disagree on topics, and I think it's okay to disagree. And I think some of that came through at town meeting. What did you think?
I think town meeting had a different tone to it. I think we could have done a few things different from a staff perspective. I feel like that meeting, it's not an excuse. We were kind of caught in between COVID times and a normal town meeting. We should have gotten closer to resuming how we did things, having staff down front, being a little bit more present, having more thorough presentations. So if I could go back and change a few things, I felt like town meeting members didn't really feel like they had enough information to get through a lot of articles, which caused them to ask a lot of questions. So those are the things that I would have changed. There were 2 articles that weren't approved, the first and the last one, and that's always fine. The Board of Selectmen in selecting warrant articles doesn't necessarily, sometimes they put things on the warrant because they feel it's appropriate for the legislative body to cast their vote on it. And, I certainly think that they had a vision for Article 13, but, it's left to the legislative body, and, there's no hard feelings for things like that. But I do agree with you. Civil discourse is important.
Mhm.
So.
Now, I know that although you weren't at town meeting because you had a family commitment, you reviewed town meeting. What was your take on it?
Well, my takeaway was on two levels. One level was process, decision-making, and the other level was on substance, right, and where people are at with the substance. And I think on the process side of things, it was always tradition at the beginning of the meetings that we pointed out that it's really important for people to feel comfortable to get up and speak and express their opinions. And that in that light, we wanted to make sure that, and it would be ruled out of order, if people clapped or cheered, because if you're clapping or cheering for a person's point of view, it makes it a little difficult for people who might not have the same point of view to get up and share their point of view. So, kind of looking at that and thinking about, maybe making that clear, it might be good to just reinforce that, respecting each other is important, because the second thing we used to remind people of is no personal attacks, on any officials at the head or anywhere else. So that it was, set the tone of respect and civil conversation. And that sets the whole tone for the conversation and the discussion. And a town meeting, really, all the years that I've participated, has been a place where I think people really do feel comfortable. And I think, and I do think people that night felt comfortable, but I think if one takeaway might be to just reinforce at the beginning of the meetings, what the ground rules are, might help, set the tone a little bit. So that from a process point of view, that was one of my takeaways. From a substance point of view, I think I think there's, I guess I'd ask a question first before I tell you my substance. So, Kevin, you've referred, and John Samnier has referred when I spoke with him, and Mo DiPaolo and other people as I travel around, about the vision of Shrewsbury being a destination town. Is there a strategic plan with a mission, vision, values that's printed and shared with people? I mean, I haven't seen it.
Sure.
I went on the website to look for it. Is it there?
No, so we are within about actually 2 or 3 weeks of actually publishing the town's first comprehensive strategic plan, like a town-wide strategic plan. We've really worked on that in earnest since January with a lot of public feedback. We're nearing publication of that. The vision, there is a vision document for the town center itself, and that's on the planning page of the website, and that was done in 2018 and 2019. There was a investigation and visioning session for 1 through 7 Maple Avenue, where Beale Elementary School was, and then the town center in general, which led us to the town center zoning overlay district and things like that. So we have that smaller vision document for the town center, which was important, for conversation with Article 13 the other night, but we will finally have our first overall strategic plan in place I'll say before the end of the year, but likely before the end of November.
Right.
I'm really excited about that. I think it's a foundational part of how we're going to do business and allow everyone to kind of understand. We've asked the residents to help us define the vision, and then how are we going to move towards achieving that. So I think we've been missing that central document.
Yeah, I think it would, I'm fairly active, and I wasn't as familiar. I am a little more familiar because, as I said, I've kind of looked into it, and I've heard people refer to the vision for the center of town. And it might have been helpful, I think, for that brief presentation to be made, so that people kind of had a better sense of, there was a little history leading up to the whole redo of the Beal School
Sure.
in the area, so
Yeah.
that people had a little bit more of a sense of that.
Yeah.
Maybe a little more engagement with the community on how that has, come to pass in a little more details.
Mhm.
Are there like specific goals and objectives in the plan that?
Yeah, there are for the town center as far as creating, reestablishing vibrancy and, small retail and restaurant type businesses, things like that. The overall strategic plan, yes, will have, clear priorities. There's 5 strategic outcome areas. And there's sub-strategies within each one of those. And every budget moving forward from fiscal year 24, which will start next July and on, departments are going to be required to align with the strategic plan and demonstrate how their budget proposals do that.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So I guess from a process perspective, just to reflect back, in a way, I think maybe the select board was a little ahead of the rest of the community in understanding all of those things. So it might be,
Yeah.
good to, spend a little bit of time at a town meeting just clarifying, and you'll be sharing all that information anyway.
Yeah.
I know we all got surveys and we all,
Yeah.
tried to participate in the
Yeah.
process.
Yeah.
But nobody's, I don't think, I know I wasn't, that's why I asked the question,
Yeah.
familiar with what the outcome is, and it
Yeah.
sounds like it's coming out.
Yeah, it's coming up.
And,
Yep.
and
Yep.
we'll see it.
Yeah.
I have to say I had a lot of respect for you, because one of the things that I think is really important, when you do have a meeting that gets a little tense, it's always good to be authentic and genuine, and your ability to say, timing here is not good. I apologize for not,
Yep.
bringing some of these things
Yep.
forward.
Yep.
I think people really appreciate,
And that's a
that.
sign of a strong leader.
It is, absolutely, absolutely.
Yep.
So, I mean, I think, in a sense, I think you're a little ahead of where other people are,
Sure.
as far as that's concerned. From the substance point of view, I think where people, my takeaway is, and I know there are some people who feel very passionately about this issue, may even have other agendas, I don't know, all the backdrop to everything. But there are people who I think didn't have any, agenda, who believe, and I think the vote demonstrated probably a majority of people believe that the Beal deal is done, and we all voted to support it, and we bought into, the presentation and the vision on the Beal deal. But I think people are now feeling, the developer needs to do a
Sure.
little more. I think people felt that the developer should have done a little more to begin with. So bringing this forward kind of got people the opportunity to relitigate,
Yeah.
the Beal deal a little bit.
Yeah.
And so you ended up hitting that wall with
Yeah.
that. I think the majority of town meeting right now, and maybe a majority of the town, probably is in favor of really pushing the developer
Yeah.
to come up with the funds to do it. So I don't know how that's all gonna work out.
Yeah.
I know people kept asking, where's our next point where we can raise,
Yeah.
some of these issues.
So I can provide a couple updates if you
Yeah,
don't mind
no,
on that.
yeah,
So,
absolutely, that's great.
Yeah, so with regards to that piece on Chase Terrace, the developer did reach out to the prior owner and was contacted by the new owner to purchase it. So the prior owner, had their deal set already, and they closed about a week after they put it on the market. So even the Beal developer who was interested in buying it and would have paid for it didn't have the opportunity to do that from the current buyer. The new buyer is looking for an unreasonable amount of money. I don't have a problem with saying that. I have an email from them that said, well, we'll be happy to sell it to the town for $325,000, which is double what they paid for it.
Right.
So they have the right to do that as the current property owner. So I think we tried to do some of that, and no one wants to use eminent domain to be heavy-handed. We felt it was an opportunity to maybe consider it, but I certainly understand that. We want having the private market play a larger hand is always better, in my opinion. Unfortunately, that did happen, but maybe not, within the concept that we would like to see with regards to 1 through 7. But the developer, Civico Greenlee, will be at the Board of Selectmen meeting coming up this coming Tuesday, because the board's going to have an irregular schedule in November, and they're going to present what they're presenting to the planning board in December. So they'll
Right.
share their full kind of site plan and everything that they've updated from last spring whenever they were in. So it'll be a really good opportunity for everyone to kind of see what their plans are for the site, and then it will go into the formal regulatory review and permitting process with the planning board. So
Right.
we're getting there as far as
Yeah.
the progression of that project.
One question I had, excuse me, about Chase Terrace was, were the neighbors, there are people that live on this street, were the neighbors involved in any of the discussion? Because I was concerned about how they would feel with that area being brought in as a public parking lot.
They really weren't, and that's only because of timing, right?
Timing,
yeah,
right.
like so the property was listed. Again, I could be off by a day or two, but it was listed on September 27th. It was acquired by the current owner on October 4th. Between October 27th and October 4th, we indicated to the seller we're interested, and then they came back to us and said, we told them October 17th, we'll get the funds. And we'll make you an offer, and they said, well, we can't wait, we had just too good of an offer, which, they got $15,000 over what they asked for, which was 10%. So that's the deal they took. Yeah.
So I was just going to say that it sounds like you've worked with the developer, and developer has engaged the new owner, and the developer is now in a position, since the owner has expressed the asking price, to come back and say, well, this is what we're prepared to do. Right?
Yeah,
I mean, that's where we are with
it would be up to them,
Right.
whether they can work that deal out or not.
Right.
Yeah.
And the new owners must know that the town meeting is really, expressing an interest for them to participate a little more.
Yeah, and the new owners have applied for a building permit for a single family home there, and they're a company that has done other development in the town for residential facilities, one on Janet Circle. So whether that's their intention for this site or not, but it's a similar plan that's been submitted for a building permit on that site. So we'll just have to wait and see, how that plays out, and whether that is what they're doing to move forward.
And once again, if they do what they're planning to do on Janet Circle, then that'll be concerning for the neighbors too.
Could be, yep. Yep.
And while we're on the articles that failed, the dog article, when I read the language of the article, and it talked about disposing of the dog, to me, disposing of a dog means they're going to kill the dog. And I think that I wasn't convinced that the shelter where they go is a no-kill shelter, because when you read the information about that location, it doesn't talk about it being a no-kill shelter. Like, they don't state that. So to me, that leaves the door open for them to do what they choose once they have the dog. Did you have any more to add to that piece?
Yeah, I think about this stuff a lot.
Yeah.
First of all, this is a bad pun, but that was a rough start to the meeting.
Really? A rough start. Okay.
But
It was.
But one of the things I wish I would have said is we don't have none of the animals that we've taken there, to our knowledge, have ever been euthanized.
Yeah.
Right. So I should have said that at the meeting, but caught up in it. It's not. It wasn't. It's not the end of the world. We were trying to just come into compliance, reduce the restriction. It keeps a good partnership with the Worcester Animal Rescue League, because when they adopt the dog out, they make money. I didn't want to be harsh to any town meeting members either, and I don't mean to be that now, but like, I have dogs, and I've had dogs my whole life. If someone doesn't realize their dog is missing 6 days after it's gone missing, and doesn't know what to do, like maybe call the Shrewsbury Police Department, or check Facebook, or call their neighbor or something, like, I don't know. I think that's a little
And
silly.
everyone made the same comment.
Yeah.
Why didn't they? Why wouldn't they make a call? Why? Yeah. Well, there might be extenuating circumstances. We all tried to think of the extreme circumstance, but whatever it is that the person doesn't have a tag on their dog or whatever, it's not the dog's fault. It's the way I look at it. And I don't have dogs. I can't even say I'm a dog lover, but I just was very uncomfortable with shortening their chances of being adopted out as opposed to being disposed of, and that just
it's not even that. So after our mandatory holding period, then they're available for adoption.
Right.
It's not that something otherwise happens at that time. Yeah.
So was the rationale to try to create an earlier adoption process? I mean, is there a cost?
That's what would have
associated?
happened. Yeah. So the town is charged $25 per night that the dog is there.
Okay.
The only time that the town ever pays that bill is if the animal reaches our minimum holding or the maximum holding period. So right now that's 10 days. So if someone doesn't pick their animal up at the end of 10 days, we owe the Worcester Animal Rescue League $250, and then they adopt the animal, prepare the animal for adoption, assuming it's healthy enough to be adopted, all those things.
So it was a $75 savings.
Yeah, it'd be a $75 difference.
And it didn't actually seem to be that many dogs that this happens with. But it was just all about disposing.
It's our most shared and our most visited Facebook pages on the police department activities.
So I had a bright idea, and I don't have Facebook, and I made the recommendation. They put it on Facebook, they already do, but I don't have Facebook, so I wouldn't know. But so they had a great idea.
When I heard about all of that, I was thinking, when they put the new sidewalks on Main Street going down, I know when they were doing it, I was thinking, I wonder who's going to walk. COVID came along, and I can't tell you the traffic that walks, runs, takes their carriages back and forth, and all of a sudden, hundreds of dogs appeared with walkers. Okay, COVID came along, and a lot of people got dogs. In my family alone, 6 new dogs appeared during COVID, and I now sometimes babysit one of those dogs periodically. And it's kind of a community building exercise to babysit the dog, because I walk around the whole block, and I now know neighbors that I never met before.
See?
And I'm really enjoying the opportunity to get to know the neighborhood a little better and some of the people, which is really terrific, But I also know dogs really kind of require, a lot of loving care, okay? And when our kids were growing up, we had a dog, a cat, we had rabbits, chickens, ponies, horses, and a donkey. Okay. So when my kids left, we kind of gave up the pet thing because we wanted to do a little traveling. And with COVID, all these people, got pets. Now we can all get around, and a lot of pets are showing up at these shelters, right? I mean, not only locally but nationally, it's a real problem. So I was thinking it might be related to that problem, but it had absolutely nothing to do with that, really.
It didn't actually, but it's a good point.
I was thinking that the shelter might be feeling overwhelmed and trying to move things along a little quicker.
Yeah, no, they didn't have any. I don't even know if they were aware we were looking to make the change. To be
and people were very complimentary about the people that work in the shelters too. So a lot of good information came from that. So I don't think it was a failure that that article went down, but I think it brought some good discussion along the way. And in 1976, town meeting members voted to purchase Prospect. Well, I don't know what they call it, Prospect Hill, whatever. It was the Masonic property, and so one of the main purposes of part of that property was for cemetery, and not too many people are around that remember that, but I was happy to see that the town meeting voted to go forward with the design study. I think that's really important, especially when we know people are, buying up those spaces pretty fast these days. And we're going to run out of space before the cemetery's even done.
That's right. Yeah, we're just at that critical time where, even under normal circumstances, that it's going to take us. We're going to run out of spaces around the same time we think we could have the new plots available for everyone. So I was thankful that town meeting voted to support us to continue to move forward on that initiative. You know, we think the construction cost is about $5 million. The Board of Selectmen has already said to me, you know, you got to find a way to fund it without excluding the debt and increasing taxes for everyone. So we're focusing on that with an opportunity to do that reasonable, you know, to do a reasonable length of borrowing for a $5 million project and not burden the taxpayers anymore. So we'll find a way to do that. I think we'll be back as soon as the annual town meeting to put the funding in place because we have a time constraint.
Good,
Yeah.
good.
I know that in the existing cemetery, it's not a mausoleum really, but there's
Columbarium,
a barium.
Yeah.
columbarium.
Columbarium.
Yep.
Is there any thought to expanding that as a way of
Yeah.
increasing capacity?
Yeah, there is. They haven't been very popular.
I know,
I will
I'm
say
surprised.
that.
There's only like 4 spaces
Yeah,
or
so there's one columbarium
That-
constructed
Yeah.
over there, and there's room for at least 2, if not 3 additional ones in current Mountain View. They are incorporated into the design areas for them on the news section as well. And that was a question that was kind of asked about more natural barriers. I take that to be, you know, less embalming of the body and also cremations and things like that. And that is something that is incorporated into the thought process and kind of enables those 23 acres for us to project a 50-year timeline for it. So, you know, we're not developing it to be 50 full years of traditional, you know, full body burials. There is cremations and all that. Incorporated
And we do
into it.
have to remember that people have different ideas of how they want to be buried.
Right. No, absolutely.
So we have to be alert to
Yep.
the different views of what that is. Because people are buried in certain ways for religious reasons, for all kinds of personal reasons.
I mean, even just, my wife's family's from New Jersey, right? And you know, husband and wife, you know, they have, you know, they're stacked burials there. I mean, New Jersey's a highly populated place, and so they've been forced to move in that direction. But yeah, I mean, have you
ever seen the cemetery at Key West? You drive by the cemetery in Key West, and because they're below sea level, everything's above ground.
Sure, right,
And that looks like the kind you'd see in Halloween movies, to tell you the truth. But it's just what they're used to.
Yeah.
We're not. So there
tradition,
are
custom.
right. It is custom.
Yeah.
So, and then the handicap parking going from 100 to 300. I said that I thought the money should go, the fines should go into the general fund. And somewhere I just recently read some of the ways that the handicap council can spend that money. And I was unaware that they could use that money for, say I had a handicap or a disability, that some of that funding from those fines could go to me to help me with what I need to be more mobile and that. And those are good things.
Yeah.
I couldn't even comprehend that that's how the money could be used. But that was another point of, if we had that information, maybe I wouldn't have, you know, felt strongly that it had to go in the general fund, because those are really good ways to use that money, because, you know, those tools are so expensive. So
Right for him.
I thought that was actually a good idea. Maybe we should go higher. No, I'm only kidding. I'm only kidding. I think it's good that it went from 100 to 300. Did you have anything to add to that?
No, I just think it was, I agree with you 100%. I think if we can keep those spaces for people who have disabilities is really, I think, critical.
So
If
important.
you know somebody personally that's got a disability, you really appreciate, you know,
Yes.
the access that creates. And we as a country have really made a lot of positive strides in allowing people to lead a full life despite
Yes.
any disabilities that they may or may not have. So I'm all in favor of it, and I do favor putting the money back into the disability system. I think that's a great thing, and I think people would love that.
Yeah. And I thought it was interesting that Floral Street School, how old is it that they need a new HVAC system already?
Oh,
Has time flown?
yeah,
And
time has flown. Well, how many years was it built before the high school was built?
Oh, I bet at least 10 years,
So
right?
then 30 years.
So, and that's the
Yeah.
life of an
Oh, yeah.
HVAC system?
Yep. Oh, yeah.
And
If you're
that's
lucky.
expensive, yeah.
If you're lucky. 30 years is quite a lifespan for an HVAC system.
And we don't have any HVAC specialists in town, right? We couldn't hire
No,
one
yeah,
because
that's
of
all-
the
yeah,
rate.
It's always been a position that we've struggled to fill because they make a higher wage in the private sector. And so we've relied upon contractors for the most part.
And the Board of Selectmen is officially the select board,
They are.
which I think is great. Enough said on that. Let's talk about mental health in our community. Everywhere around the country, it seems that there's a dramatic rise in mental health, or is it just that we now pay attention to it? What's the difference?
I think that the numbers of people who experience mental health behaviors and mental health dilemmas for themselves personally, I think that there's been an increase. And we see it in the numbers across the country. And COVID has, of course, not helped anything because it really has created more isolation for people.
Mm-hmm.
People's mental health is more positive when they're engaged in caring relationships that foster their own personal self-esteem and growth. And we've gone in this country from 17% of the population to almost 30% of the adult population now lives alone, which is an astounding number when you think about it. And of course, everybody's using the internet as a way of making connections, even the teenagers, right?
Mm-hmm.
They're doing the little thing. I was driving with my daughter and one of her friends one time, and my granddaughter's texting, and I said, Liv, you shouldn't be texting your friends in the back seat. You should be having a conversation. She said, Pepe, I'm texting her. We don't want you to know what we're talking about. You know what I mean? So I think we've experienced real increases, and we have not experienced real increases in our ability to respond to the demand for care, which is a huge problem.
Mm-hmm.
Right now in this state, perhaps one of the biggest problems that we have is being able to meet the demand and even come close to meeting the demand. Right now we have lots of kids in emergency rooms for weeks because they can't
No
find
beds.
a bed for the kids.
Yeah.
And it's not that there's no beds, okay? You Inc. ran a program called the Wetzel Center. It's hospital level care. They have about 32 beds available, and I believe they're using right now around 18 because they don't have enough staff. To keep the kids safe.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I've been consulting to a couple of group facilities. One of them had to close because they could not get enough staff to keep everybody safe.
Where have
So
all the
there's-
employees gone?
That's that question I can't wrap my arms around. Where are they?
Everywhere.
It's everywhere.
Yeah.
It's everywhere and everything. No matter where you go, people are looking for employees.
Yeah.
So I think it's when you look at the high school, for example, and the schools in general, the kids coming back. We all see that the kids have suffered a setback in a lot of ways.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of it's just, socialization, being together again and being able to, interact and have those relationships that are positive. There's enough kind of bullying and other behaviors that make it difficult for the kids. And of course, the technology makes it easier for people to do those things. But we're very fortunate in Shrewsbury, though. We do have Shrewsbury Community Services, and I spoke with Christine Mowry, the CEO, today in preparation for coming this afternoon. And they've done something that is really innovative and great to deal with this issue because at U Inc. we ran 3 clinics, one up in Gardner, one in Southbridge, and one in Worcester. When I left, we were doing almost 3,000 patient visits a week.
Oh.
Okay, the wait list to see a psychiatrist was at least 6 months.
Wow.
Today, it's got to be over a year before you see a psychiatrist. To recruit a child psychiatrist takes 2 years, just to get somebody there. So you almost have to be recruiting somebody all the time because if the person you have leaves, then you've got a real
Yeah.
issue on your hands. So you know, the ability of the system to meet, you know, the demands is really tough. So there's these big wait lists. Shrewsbury Community Services, for their counseling services for individuals, families, and groups, they've got a wait list too. And it's a 6-month wait list. But they've created a very innovative way of trying to deal with the wait list. And part of it is they're working with the police department. And so when somebody calls, by the time they call, they want help right away. You know, they don't want to hear, well, call me back 6 months from now, right? I mean, that's not where you want to be. So they've created a system where intakes, especially people with acute needs, somebody that's really depressed and suicidal, and, you know, they get immediate appointment, you know, and they're seen for at least 6 sessions to kind of help them stabilize, and then they'd wrap around services and figure out a time in the future when they could get connected to a long-term clinical relationship. And they're doing that with the police department. So somebody comes in, they're going to be able to see that person, you know, short-term, 5 to 6 sessions to help them kind of get stabilized, have a plan, make sure there's a safety plan in place for people who may need, you know, that. So they've really done a great job.
That's really good. And they still have a lot of interns, don't they?
They do have interns. They train interns, but they've got a lot of professional staff now. Some who may be working somewhere else, but they're working in Shrewsbury part-time, and some that are full-time, because they've been able to expand that aspect of the agency, because insurances pay for, you know, clinical services, so they can bill insurances. Their clinical staff are LICSWs.
LICS.
And they can bill, you know, an insurance company, because they have the credentials to bill. So that makes a difference. So they've expanded that aspect of the agency quite a bit. But they also, you know, the other big thing is prevention. You know, what can we do to kind of help people, you know, understand what the problem is, how to identify the problem, and maybe some basic skills on how to prevent it. And Shrewsbury Community Service does a lot of that. And they have a program called Mental Health First Aid. And they've been training people all over the state in mental health first aid to identify, you know, the symptoms of depression, anxiety, ADHD, suicidal behavior. You know, they can train people how to do that, substance abuse indications, you know, how do you identify it, and what are some of the skills you can teach people to help them to cope with some of these kind of issues. They're actually going to have, and I told her I'd put this plug in while I was here, if it's all right.
Good.
Okay, they're actually going to have a mental health first aid training, an all-day training for anybody who's interested in getting that training, because it's kind of like CPR training, right?
Yeah.
If you have that training, you'll be able to handle some, you know, difficult situations you may run into. And it's going to be on November 5th, Saturday. It's going to include breakfast and lunch. It goes from 9 to 4. And the breakfast and lunch is being paid for by Celebrate Zoe's Life Fund and Andrea Castanetti's Realty. And they're paying for the bill for it. So I think all you have to do is go to Shrewsbury Youth and Family Services website to sign up. But I think it's a great opportunity for people who may think they have a teenager who's struggling with substance abuse, or may be more depressed and they're not sure whether to seek out help, or people who just want to develop a skill that they may use, you know, within their family or even in the community, because we're all running into some pretty difficult behavior in the community as well. So it's an opportunity, so I put that plug in for them.
And it's amazing how this spills into the police department, school department.
Yeah.
So it does impact town services.
Sure.
And just people in general, residents in town.
Yeah, many town staff have taken the mental health first aid training through Shrewsbury Youth and Services. And of course, we now have a licensed clinician that is a member of the Shrewsbury Police Department that responds in nonviolent situations. And she's been very, you know, just a true asset to the community and helping individuals, when, the police aren't the best first responders or fire aren't the best first responders in situations like that.
So she's a proven asset already.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
That's great.
And Christine also said that she's really terrific and great to work with, because she'd be on the line and then she'd make a referral to Shrewsbury Youth and Family Services to do the initial 4 or 5 sessions follow-up.
Right,
So they
yeah.
work closely together, and they're all very impressed with the young lady who's been selected for that position.
And she's a town employee
She is, yep.
with her experience through advocates,
Yeah.
Yep,
right?
right. So, yeah, she's being funded through a 3-year grant through Advocates, which means we can continue to divert those funds right now to get more police officers that we need. So it's a win-win for us. Yeah.
Great,
Yeah.
great.
So, yeah.
I'm glad that's working out. Angela Snell is going to be Clinton's first assistant town manager,
Is, yep.
town administrator.
Is, yep.
She is already?
Yeah, she is, yep.
So her vacation's over and she's there, huh?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And Jackie Pratt's moved to Vermont.
Yep, to be the head of the Stowe, Vermont Municipal Light Department, or Municipal Light, yep. So she's gonna be
So
the
she's
general
taken
manager
her
up there.
experience from Shrewsbury and she's bringing it to Vermont.
Yep,
Amazing.
yeah.
And Mary Thompson, our assistant town manager in charge of finance,
Mm-hmm.
has retired.
So
Is
she'll-
it real? Is she really retired?
Well, not yet. So we have till Friday.
Till Friday.
Today's Wednesday. Yeah. So yeah, Mary's been with the town for almost 36 years.
And do you know I was on the Board of Selectmen when we interviewed her?
Yeah.
Can you imagine
Yeah,
that?
yeah.
Time flies.
Yeah.
Time flies.
Yeah.
And she's been a cornerstone for us
Yep.
for all those years too.
Yeah.
Valuable employee.
Yeah.
So what will you, do you have somebody
Yeah. So
in the queue?
yeah, David Snowden will be the assistant town manager for finance. and
Really? He's
administration.
really getting around.
Yeah.
He's really
Yeah.
gotten a variety of jobs within the town in a short period of time.
Yep. Yeah, so David came to us with, 7, 8 years experience. And then, with his MPA, and then we've put him in put him in some supervisory and tough positions to help him grow individually. I don't know if he would agree with that statement. But yeah, he's done a really good job, and this is a great opportunity for him. I think this position will suit him better than any position that he's been in.
He's meant for this
Yeah,
position.
along with the strategic plan and goal setting and innovation, it allows us to have a kind of a new approach to things.
That's
So,
really
yeah.
pretty exciting, I think, because
Yeah.
he reminds me, I don't know why, but he reminds me of when Michael Hill came. He was a young kid to me, Michael. And he grew up in the town. And he was a very valuable employee. And I see David following in those same paths. So we've requested to join, the town has requested to join the Assabet Valley School District for technical education,
Vocational,
vocational. But it's a very difficult process. You can apply to be in it, but you need 100% of the towns in the district to say yes.
Yes.
Assabet's already full. Our chances of all those towns saying yes is probably a token request.
Right,
Do you
yeah.
believe it's going to happen?
Well, I mean, we haven't heard back from them on our request, and I think at minimum we're looking for a dialogue with them to see if we can be part of the solution to the challenges that have been introduced into vocational education across the Commonwealth.
Yeah.
And it's I understand those towns that are in those districts feeling slighted when non-participating towns had students come in, but it has created a challenge for others, and there has to be a solution out there to get the right education, for the right students, right? It's benefited so many Shrewsbury residents, and by being able to go to Assabet, and we just need to see what we can do to get back on the right track.
Is there a
People-
plan B? Sorry,
I'm sorry.
go ahead.
People need to understand, I think, that Assabet kind of put money into developing the school, the technology school, tech school. And then they invited other school districts to put in money to expand the school because to meet the growing need in towns. But they put most of the money in. And so as I understand it, their students are first in line
That's right.
to be accepted by by the school.
Yes.
Then the participating towns can send their students, and some of them will get in, some of them won't get in, because the demand exceeds the supply again, right? And so we're in the situation of we're outside looking in, wanting to get in so we can get some of our students in there. If we can't get in, we're really going to have to look at, can we develop a tech capacity and maybe get one or two other towns to join us in developing another tech school to meet the need, because we've got it's a real big issue, you know. And I had a young man came to tune up our boiler to make sure we got through the winter, and I chatted with him for a little bit, and I said, "Where'd you get your training?" He said, "Bay Path."
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I said, great, because not everybody's going to go to college.
Right.
There are a lot of people.
And we need people.
We need people to
in
come
those
and fix our
fields.
boilers.
Yeah,
Exactly.
absolutely.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
And Worcester Voc has a waiting list for people within their own system also. So this is not going to be a problem that's going to go away.
No.
We probably should have seen it coming.
Well, there was that critical change in state law that said, you basically, and I'm not the expert, Dr. Sawyer certainly is, and his team, but you have to admit everyone from the towns that are formally associated with
First.
those districts before you can consider outside. So
Which
that
is fair.
Yeah, I
It's
mean, I
fair.
understand the argument. Yeah.
They needed us. It's almost like bringing in students from other places because you want their tuition.
Yeah, right, school
and they
choice.
needed, school choice. They needed our tuition, but they don't need it anymore.
Yeah.
So, we probably should have been.
Yeah.
But
thinking,
obviously,
forward
I think this was discussed at town meeting, I think last year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
that's-
And I think that the superintendent's making a real effort to try to break in so that we don't have to think about allocating
Right.
more resources to this
Yeah.
effort. So, it's a credit to him and his team that they're
Yeah.
doing the best they can. But if
Yeah.
they can't, they've got to come back and say, for the benefit of, and they can probably give us numbers on how many students would have gone if the opportunity was there.
Yeah.
And we got to think about how we're going to
Yeah.
handle that.
And Route 20 improvements. The plan for that won't even be. The actual work won't begin till 2026.
Yeah.
Seems like forever.
Yeah.
But is that because you need the design phase and all the rest of it?
It's just the process, land acquisitions if needed, and finalizing the entire design and going through the state process. The funding is there, which is normally what you look for at the end of the design process. But we have strong advocates in Washington and Boston, Senator Moore, Representative Kane, Congressman McGovern, that brought the funding to us. Lieutenant Governor, of course. So now it seems like the design's going to take a long time. But it's a complicated, important corridor. So.
What's the best part about the improvements that will be coming on Route 20
I think,
after the construction goes away?
Yeah, just the safety, right? Consistency in lane width, consistency in number of lanes, and those types of things.
Will they automatically put in sidewalks like Mo talked about?
Yeah.
Because we should have had sidewalks on Route 9 when they did the
It'll be.
improvements.
That's a requirement. That's where we may need to acquire some more land if the width of the roadway isn't the width of the roadway layout, not necessarily where the road is today, but what they actually own isn't wide enough. But that's a Mass DOT requirement.
And it's amazing how many pedestrians are on Route 20. And they walk up on someone's lawn because there's nowhere else for them to walk.
Right.
So that will be, just sidewalks alone, I think, will be a good thing. And Market Basket is finally opening soon. When is it?
I don't have an exact date. They haven't.
Before the end of the year, right?
Oh yeah, their intention was to be open before the end of October, but that's like a week away now. I doubt they want to miss Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
So
I
would
hope
think
we
it's pretty
can
soon.
actually get in there, because I think so many people from everywhere are going to try to get in. It's like we'll probably have to go to the one in Hudson or somewhere else in order to. But I think that's really good for the town, because I believe that the shopping is necessary. All of the stores are very crowded, and I think it's good for competition. I really do. So Gene Muddenhagen is the new appointee to the Finance Committee?
He is, yes.
How exciting is that? after he contributed for so many years, and he was a valuable member of the finance committee. To know that he's willing to come back, I think is just wonderful. And I say that after doing it for 3 months. I was like, okay, I forgot. I forgot. I don't want the commitment. I don't want to put in, more time. I like my free schedule. So I really applaud him for doing this. I think that's great. He'll be an asset to the finance committee. American Rescue Plan Act.
Yes.
What are some of the project options
Yeah,
that
so
will be coming forward?
yeah, the board will look to finalize their full funding plan and then share it through a community forum type event. They're going to try to do their final workshop activities and work and fleshing everything out on November 8th, and then share it with the community over the course of 3 or 4 weeks after that.
So can you give us any hints of
Sure.
what direction it's going? Because they must have discussed it in public meetings, right?
They have, yeah. I mean, just, a lot of investments in parks, a lot of investments.
Give us examples of what that means.
Pickleball, you'll hear about improving parks other than Dean. We've made a lot of investments in Dean Park in recent years.
Which needed to be done,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
there are other parks in
Yeah.
town that
Yep.
are
There's some
screaming for
yeah.
attention.
Yeah, some internal kind of facing staff things to continue to support our training programs, which, helps residents. And,
What's that mean?
we're always limited each year on how much money we have and can spend. And we've focused a lot on, at least since I've been here and I know before, staff training opportunities. So we're actually creating a internal program. We'll actually have external facing things as well, called the Shrewsbury Way Academy. And we'll have particular course curriculum to develop leaders within the organization. So someone that's not a manager yet that wants to be a manager, or someone that's newly hired that wasn't part of the organization who is now a manager. We'll have to go through a 15-week program. We're going to have customer service training. Right now we have an individual named John Wortman that's providing that training.
Is this like the Disney way?
It's our opportunity to develop our own people. So in some ways it
great.
is, yeah. Then we also are setting out to develop a citizens academy, so we can help build people's knowledge of how we operate the government, and get them more. Have them hopefully build an understanding of finance and police operations
And who will be doing that?
Town staff will
Really?
be leading those. It'll be about like an 8-week program. Junior Police Academy, something that the chief wants to do. Things like that. And then a little bit of investment in public infrastructure, just to make sure we're still blocking and tackling and have water and sewer infrastructure that we need. But the vast majority of it's direct public improvements for parks and things like that.
And he mentioned the police station, that beautiful police station that's coming to almost being completed inside.
Yep.
And then the outside work will probably be moved to the spring anyhow, right?
Yeah.
So what do you want to tell us about that?
Well, everything's just on track and on budget. Primarily, we hope for a temporary CO in November or December to move furniture in, and then moving full operations over there in February timeframe, and then public events and tours and things like that once we kind of clean it all up in the spring.
Now, this building is very big. Tell us, for anyone who didn't hear this before, I just want to keep repeating why it's the size that it is.
Well, first of all, the Shrewsbury Police Department has 100 employees. So there's a lot of people that work there, not all at the same time. We don't have currently a big enough room to even have a roll call that everyone can envision, where all the officers for a shift come in and get briefed by their sergeants and lieutenants on what they're going to do.
Police don't even have this much space
Yep.
to eat lunch.
Yep, there's no training facility in the current one, and when I say training, I mean both physical training opportunities and things like de-escalation training, simulated firearms training, training rooms, that can be used by the police department and the public / town staff in general. we don't have enough space for evidence. We don't have enough space for record storage. Our
Dispatch.
Yep, dispatch will be unified operations.
Clerical,
Clerical staff, detective bureau.
evidence,
Yeah, all those.
everything.
Yeah.
We outgrew that
Yeah.
building so many years
And,
ago.
yeah, and then the more modern things, right? Like equal, separate women and men
Bathrooms and locker
facilities
rooms.
and gender neutral facilities, things like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's a hopefully at least 50 years. Maybe we can get 80 out of it.
Knowing Shrewsbury,
Yeah.
it'll be-
There is a little bit of extra space that doesn't have a need on day one. But if we didn't do that and we came back to residents in 10 years, people would be like, "Oh, why didn't you just build it?"
Yeah.
So we tried to do that. And
It's almost
there's
like
more-
if you look at the old
Yeah.
building or the original building there,
Yeah.
it's like it went. It just had to
Yeah.
get bigger because
more
the
cells.
town grew.
Yeah, more jail cells
Yeah.
because we have a higher population. We need to be able to accommodate
Crime is
those
different.
things. Yeah, a full Sally port.
The requirements from the state in order to deal with prisoners, and where women and children and men all have to be in separate locations. And I mean, there's just more requirements once you get into it. But I think people will be really pleased with the end result once it's available for the public to actually see. But I go by, I break my neck to see what's going on over there. And I pass the police station quite a bit during the day, but there's so much action. Like today, they're rebuilding the wall out on the
front,
side on Maple Ave. And there's a stone in there that's too big. I want to stop and tell them, take that out. You took a shortcut. Get that out of there. But it's just so exciting to see it's coming, where you can really see all the progress. And next year, once the landscaping's in place, I think it's going to be something that the town can be very proud of. And you said, well, not you, but we're going to have shared dispatch.
Yes. Yep.
So the police department and the fire department will share the same
Dispatch facility.
Yes.
Yep.
And we have so much more that we should be talking about. Do you have anything you want to add in the last 30 seconds?
No. Just that it's been a joy to have the opportunity to come in and talk to you,
Yeah,
Kevin,
thank you.
and
been
Donna,
fun.
you as well.
And I loved
Thanks
having
for
you.
inviting
I
me.
loved having you here. We're going to have him come back
Yeah,
because
definitely.
he puts a good twist on things, and I think he's one of the people at town meeting that brings us a lot of wisdom. So
Thank you.
I'm glad that he's here. And all I can say is thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.